All right, we're at the top of the hour, and I believe in rewarding the people that got here on time. So I am going to start the presentation. And our topic today is your team could produce more, but will they? And I think we all know that, everybody that works for us, including us personally, we can always do better. And I think that's something that we all have to keep in mind, that no matter what level of success you're at right now, you can always do more. You can always be more successful. And the people that I meet that stop growing are the ones that feel that they know everything, that they've made it, but again, there is always room for improvement. I myself attend at least 2 conferences a year. I always have a professional coach, just to challenge me and to make me think about, things that I might not bring up on my own. And I think that's so critically important, is that you've always got to be learning. You've always got to be going out there and changing things, because as we know, the marketplace keeps changing dramatically, and it's changing fast, and I think that, yes, we believe that our team can produce more, but think about what your people have been facing the last couple of years. I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen the type of marketplace we're in right now, where things just keep evolving day by day, day by day. And so maybe things that worked for your company, even a year ago aren't working now. Definitely things that you were doing in your company, pre-COVID are not working now, because COVID was really that influence that made us change in so many ways rapidly, and technology is doing the same thing, and I think as owners and managers, we all know, that people can do more, but it's like, what do we have to do to get them to do more? What do we have to personally do to make sure that they're going to produce more? And that's what we're going to cover today, is what are the things that you have control over to make people more successful? Because I think any of you that own a company, any of you in management, what we want to do is we always want our people to be as successful as they can become, and I think it's frustrating for any of us when you see somebody working for you that has so much talent, and as far as we're concerned, they're not living up to what they're capable of doing. So hopefully after this presentation, you're going to have some tools that are very effective, where you can get the best out of your people. Most owners and managers that I know their sales team is capable of doing so much more. We just know they are. However, there's a great difference between they can do more and will they do more. There's a big difference. We can't motivate someone that doesn't want to be motivated. You can't hire a duck and expect them to be an eagle, because they might be a very, very happy duck. They might be making great money. They might be very satisfied where they're at. And maybe you want them to do more, but what do they want? It's important to realize that not everybody has the capability of being a big biller or top producer. They just don't, and I don't believe that you can make somebody a top producer or a big biller. I've never believed that. I've had people hire me to tell them, how to make their team into high producers, or someone who's going to be extremely successful. I'm not suggesting that you hire someone who's currently a top producer in our profession. I'm just saying, when you hire, you've got to hire people that have a history of high achievement throughout their entire life. I always refer to one of my grandsons, Jack. Jack has been a high achiever ever since he's been a kid. It's been fun watching him, and people are born high achievers, or you'll recognize them at a very, very young age. They'll do well in school, they'll do well in sports. If they're not doing well in sports, they'll do well in the orchestra, or they take leadership roles at a very young age. What you have to do is you have to look for individuals when you're hiring that have that high achievement throughout their life, because they don't know how to do anything else. If someone is self-motivated and a high achiever, they're going to do the same for you. But sometimes, you want more for your people than they want for themselves. And there's nothing you can do. If you're a parent, you can't motivate another human being that doesn't want to be motivated. Some people are just born with that drive. They're born with that, never satisfied, always looking for something bigger or better, and those are the people that you have to hire. I can't tell you the number of owners I've worked with over the years, business owners that are trying to save somebody, that are trying to make somebody more than they want to be. And what eventually happens is they invest all kinds of time and money and energy trying to save somebody, and the person ends up leaving because they weren't happy. Not everybody is cut up for our profession. From the outside, what we do looks really easy, but it's not. We have people on both sides of our sale They both change, whether it's the hiring manager or the candidate. There's a tremendous amount of rejection and disappointment in what we do. And it takes a special person to be really great at what you and I do for a living. It looks easy, but it's not. It can be gut wrenching. But what can you do as an owner when you do hire somebody that's that high achiever? Maybe they have no experience in talent acquisition or recruiting. They've never done this, but how can you get the most out of them when they're working for you? Because that is our goal. And I want all of you, no matter what your role is, I want you to consider yourself no longer a business owner or a manager. Consider yourself a leader. Think about that a moment. Managers have subordinates. Leaders have followers. Managers, often if you have a strong manager, people will resent a strong manager. But it's interesting because people will follow a strong leader. In fact, it's interesting because a leader inspires people. There's a much bigger difference between, demanding something and then inspiring somebody to do something for their own reasons. So I want you to consider yourself leaders, someone who inspires other people. The time where you could go out there and just demand that things are done, or hold people's feet to the fire, that doesn't work anymore. Another thing you have to realize is the workforce has changed. The workforce has changed, the workplace has changed, and as a result, so much has changed in the way that we do our business. And like I said, if you haven't made major changes in the way that you are doing things in the last 2 years, you probably are not competitive anymore because so much has changed. And so what I would like to do is answer questions that I most often receive from owners and managers. And I hear the frustrations. And what I want to do today is to give you some concrete things that you can go back and you can implement almost immediately, and they're not going to cost you a dime. So I'm going to give you ideas that hopefully are, and I don't expect you to take everything I'm teaching you today and go and implement it. But as I'm going through this program, I'm going to go through many, many different things. So as I'm going through the program, what I want you to do is when something resonates with you, just check it off, put a special note to yourself, and I'm going to send you, the recording and the handout to this presentation. So everything that is on the PowerPoint screen, you're going to get. You're going to have this recording, you're going to have the handout. I'd rather have you listening to me. And if I say something really intelligent that's not on the PowerPoint, then you can write that down. And I'll even let you know, because I ad lib, that's just my personality. But if I say something that I think is important that you should know, I'll let you know to write things down. But I'd rather have you listening and then marking off what really resonates with you, changes that you have to make. The number one question I get is, how do I keep my sales team motivated? And again, you can't motivate someone who's made the choice not to be motivated. What you can do is identify what's most important to the people who work for you. If your sales team understands the what's in it for them, they'll motivate themselves. Never forget, people do things for their own reasons, not because you and I want them to. I can tell you, I used to stand up right after Thanksgiving every year, and I would announce to my team, and I was all excited as a business owner, and I'd stand in front of my people and say, wow, we're going to have a great year next year. I'm going to roll out some phenomenal contests. You're all going to make more money. We're going to just be more successful this year. And I would actually see eyes rolling in my team. And I'm thinking to myself, what I just rolled out $10,000 more in contests. I gave them all kinds of new tools. Like, why are eyes rolling? And when I would ask my managers, they said, Barb, all they heard was you want a better year. And they were worried what you were going to do to them, not for them. And so your team always has to realize that if you're doing something, it's not something you're doing to them, you're doing it for them. Contests will motivate your team if they're simple, short, and designed around the wants and needs of your team. I've had so many managers come up to me and say, I ran this contest, it fell flat, nobody even participated. But if you offer flexible hours, time off, or additional casual days, these are motivators that don't cost you a dime if your team is still on site. I was working with an owner recently, and his biggest frustration, in fact, I did some in-house training for him. And what I found amazing was I started training at 8 o'clock in the morning for them. And we could have 3 or 4 people walk in at 9:30, not even apologize because they were late. They just kind of walked in and sat down. And so I was there for 2 days. The second day, I finally pulled the owner aside and I said, what's going on with the group that just comes in late? Like, didn't they know we were starting at 8? He goes, Barb, all 3 of them are 3 of my best producers. They do a great job for us. They fill more jobs than anybody else, but I can't get them to work on time. And it's caused a real problem with my team that does get here on time. they really resent these people. And I said, why don't you offer flex time? Like, why don't you offer, you can work 8 to 5, you can work 10 to 7. And the owner goes, I can't do that. Our hours are 8 to 5. And I go, why? Why? Because if you have some people coming 8 to 5 and some people coming 10 to 7, you're covering your business from 8 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock at night. And what was interesting, he's called me a couple times and said, Barb, are you ready for this? And I go, what? And he said, I am telling you that the people that are coming in at 10, they're not leaving at 7. They're there till 8 or 9 o'clock at night. It's like they just couldn't get there early, but they have no problem working over. And it's interesting because if you're hiring millennials and Gen Z, I mean, they now make up 53% of the workforce. And in 2025, that's like 2 years away, they're going to be over 70% of the workforce. And it was mostly the millennials that wanted to come in later. They wanted to come in. And so I said, you have to offer it to everybody. Tell everybody they can come in 10 to 7. People with kids in daycare can't do that. A lot of people that are a little bit older want to get home to make dinner for their kids. They're not going to do that. And he said it was just a handful that did it, and he goes, but it gives us more coverage. And he goes, I can't get over how late they stay at work. And he goes, but they didn't like getting there at 8 o'clock and they're on time when they can come in at 10. Training and professional development are two priorities that millennials and Gen Z list as what's most important to them. And so make sure that as you're making changes, you are keeping everybody included. You are keeping everybody in the loop, because when you consider that millennials and Gen Z are now, over 70% of the workforce in a very short period of time, they're going to be over 70% of the workforce. Most people don't believe that. And that's big data from LinkedIn. That's not Barbara Bruno thinking this is going to happen. I've done courses for LinkedIn Learning. And as a result, they have monthly meetings that we attend and they share big data with us. I just taped 2 more courses in my home last week for LinkedIn Learning. It was interesting. One course is about how do you recognize transferable skills. And that's something we all have to get great at because we know the transferable skills that people that have that have a tendency of being retained and engaged more, don't they? But how do you get that across to your hiring authorities? I mean, you have got to constantly be looking at what the marketplace is offering and what changes you have to make so the people that work for you can flourish. So again, can you motivate someone that absolutely positively does not want to be motivated? The answer is no. What you can do is create a motivating environment. Create an environment where people feel informed, where people feel like they're developing personally and professionally, where they feel connected, where there's a collaborative type of environment. That's what motivates people. And if you've got a virtual team, they have to feel connected. Virtual teams are starting to feel isolated. And a lot of the companies that are studying it now that we've had virtual teams for 2 years, all the statistics are pointing that 8% of the workforce is going to remain virtual, only 8%, because so many people have realized that instant collaboration doesn't happen and people start feeling isolated and engagement and retention is really being hurt. Also, virtual employees aren't being promoted as quickly because they're out of sight, out of mind. And so there's pros and cons to both. You've got to do what's in the best interest of your business. But if you've got virtual team members, you have got to create an environment where they can motivate themselves when they're not, where you can see them, where you can interact with them, so it's a whole different ballgame now. Or if they're working hybrid, I mean, that's a different arrangement where they're working, part-time in your office and part-time at home. You've got to keep them engaged. They've got to feel connected. Now, what can you do basically to help your sales team excel? The most important assistance you can give somebody that works for you is they have to know numbers and stats and individual ratios. Recruiting and talent acquisition, those professions are the only sales profession, in the recruiting profession. I mean, this is a sales job, and so often we don't want to call it a sales job. But once the members of your sales team know their numbers, they know exactly what results they need every day to achieve their goal. How many jobs do you want them to fill in a month based on what they told you they want to do, what their goals are? Most recruiters, especially contingency direct recruiters, feel that every month is just a crapshoot. They don't know what they're going to produce. They don't know what they're going to earn. But once they know the results they need, as far as what they're going to earn, once they know the results, they can predict and achieve their income goals month after month after month. So it's important to note that I'm not saying that they have to make X amount of calls every day. I'm just now working with an owner, and he wants his recruiters to make 40 calls a day, 40 outgoing calls a day and connect. I told him it's impossible. If you have any really good conversations with somebody, you can't make 40 calls a day. I said, and when you only are monitoring, you have a call monitoring system and you're monitoring the number of calls people are making, look at how many repeat numbers are being called, because they're calling family members and dial a prayer and weather just to get the numbers of calls in. I would rather have somebody make 10 or 15, have really good conversations than to make 40 phone calls. Now, if your team is not making calls, if your recruiting team has told you that nobody's talking on the phone to them, they can only reach out on in-mail and texting, I am telling you they're wrong. Candidates will talk to recruiters when they see, if they believe you can benefit them. They feel all recruiters are alike. They feel that all we care about is filling a job. We don't care about them. And we have to quit pitching jobs. We have to quit pitching jobs. If a candidate sees how you can help them, they will talk to your recruiters. And the numbers of email that are being open, 82% of all email are not open. In-mail, LinkedIn is having an issue because a lot of in-mail are not being opened. In fact, I just did some training for them, showing them how to write in-mail that are open, because we have a very high in-mail rate. And I said, just look at what we're doing. But my in-mail don't pitch. And think of how you feel when somebody connects with you on LinkedIn, and the minute you accept, you get a sales pitch from them. I often will just, disconnect with them, because I don't mind if somebody wants to join my network, but I don't want them to pitch something to me the minute we connect. To me, it's like, okay, you haven't even taken me to dinner, and now you want to be my best friend because you're trying to sell me something. This is how candidates feel, and again, if you have a team member who is not producing daily results, the worst thing you can tell a person is make more calls. That's the worst thing you can tell somebody, because if they're not successful, they're not making the right calls. They're just not making the right calls, and I'm telling you that small adjustments can be made. You've got to listen to what your team is doing. If somebody is not successful in filling jobs, they're doing something wrong. There's a lot of recruiters out there that are working their tails off, and our recruiters are tired right now. They feel like hamsters on a wheel. They have so many jobs to fill that they don't feel they can breathe half the time. And then we're telling them, fill these jobs, fill these jobs, fill these jobs. They've got so much pressure from hiring managers that want their jobs filled. They've got pressure from the candidates that don't fit any of their jobs, that want them to find them a job, that they need to be more honest with why they can't find a job for them. And then they might be getting pressure from you as an owner or manager saying, we need to fill more jobs. But you can't just tell people to make more calls. Training is just as important for your tenure team as it is your new hires, because so often people forget. They forget that worked for them before. And some people are creatures of habit. If you're doing things the same way today you did 2 years ago, I am telling you, you're not competitive, because too much has changed. Small adjustments can be made. Now, you do see a QR code there. I do have training programs, and just so you know, I changed all my training in the last year. I've been in a studio off and on for almost 15 months, changing everything. By the way, I also put on my training in video, because I realized people don't want to read. People don't even want to listen to audios anymore. They want to watch videos. And so if you're making small adjustments, even videotape, have your people videotape themselves. They don't mind videotaping themselves at all, and listen to what they're doing. You're going to be able to make small adjustments. It's going to be interesting to you, the small adjustments that can make such major changes in their success. And if you're like me, we want our people to succeed. We want our people to succeed. But if you're at all interested in looking at training that is very current, get that QR code, just set up a call to talk to one of my people who can basically discuss some of the challenges you're facing. Now, how do you get a past top producer out of a slump? What if you had somebody who was a really, really good producer for you? They've been successful the whole time they worked for you, and all of a sudden now they're just not. Number one, you've got to make sure that they care as much as you do. The only way to eliminate slumps, in my mind, is to monitor daily results. Often slumps follow a great month. You may have somebody that had a great month. They put so many people in jobs, but that whole month they're prepping and debriefing and closing. And what happened is they stopped making recruiting presentations. They didn't do the basics they have to do every day to succeed. And again, that's when you have people that have a roller coaster. They find a ton of jobs for somebody 1 month, and then the next month they're flat. And all I'm saying to you is if you want to have consistent, high success, you want them to constantly be finding jobs for people, they've got to know their numbers, and you've got to monitor numbers and results. When you manage by numbers and not emotion, you can identify a soft month before it evolves into a slump. If you've got somebody who's failing and they've been failing for 2 or 3 months, don't point the finger at them. You got to point the finger at yourself, because you should have noticed that something was going on with them. And I know we're all really busy. I know you're very busy too. And it's really, really hard when you're managing. And a lot of you that are managing recruiters, you're also involved in recruiting. So you're a working manager. But if you have somebody that's had 2 or 3 bad months, you should have, after a week or two, when their numbers started going down, you should have listened to what they were doing and made small adjustments so that they can be successful. Also, you've got to make sure that you don't have somebody on your team that has quit and stayed. Because if somebody quits and stays, they can lower the morale of your entire team. You've got to make your decisions on what they're producing for you now. You are all in business to make a profit, not provide jobs for the people that work for you. You're in business to make a profit. Every company out there is in business to make a profit. And I find so often that people that are managing a recruiting team care more about the team than the team cares about them. They're reading the jobs to see if they fit something else. If somebody's quit and stayed, you can tell by the lack of enthusiasm. The numbers just aren't there. And sometimes you have to make tough decisions, which are never easy. I don't care how tenured you are. Those decisions are not easy to make, but sometimes you have to make them because, again, you're in business to make a profit. Now, how do you get people that are really successful to follow the rules? This is another thing I hear from owners all the time, is how do I get people that are really successful that work for me to follow the rules? Because it's really difficult to enforce systems with the rest of your sales team if you've got people that don't have to follow any rules. I've known many owners who feel like they're being held captive by a big biller. And I was there too once in my career, where I literally had someone come up to me and say, you realize that I produce 15% of the revenue of this company. I want equity. And she demanded it on the spot. And so I accepted her resignation. And when I did, I had 2 recruiters that were backing her up. I mean, she was a very, very big biller. And everybody was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? But the morale in my office went up by leaps and bounds because she was not a nice person. She was not nice to anybody because she knew she was very successful. You've got to protect yourself from the possibility of someone leaving and taking your business with them as well. And you cannot have somebody that is ruining your ability to have a team. Because I am telling you, if you want to retain and engage your team, and it's just as hard for you to engage and retain your team as it is the companies that you're representing, because everybody has options. Everybody is so well networked, and everybody is trying to recruit your recruiters too. That they're getting recruiting calls all the time. Now, if you have a big biller, if you've got someone who's extremely successful, you've got several choices. You can isolate them and let them do their own thing, let them work virtual. You can enforce systems which might result in their resignation. You can meet them somewhere in the middle where there's certain things that they must do because you want everybody to do it. You can assign 2 recruiters to every client so that your clients have an established rapport with more than one of your employees, which I think is extremely important. And I build teams around my very successful people because it elevates their level of success and it enhances retention. And it would be difficult for them to leave because they'd have to recreate this whole team. Because if you build a team around someone who's really good, someone who's really good with the clients, really good with hiring managers, you're really, really super successful people in recruiting or just have great rapport with the hiring managers, and they can generate more and strengthen those relationships stronger when you've got other individuals that are giving them candidates to present. If somebody doesn't follow the rules, it can demotivate the rest of your team. And I want to say something to all of you as a leader. I told you early not to consider yourself a manager anymore. I want you to all consider yourself leaders because people follow leaders. People are inspired by leaders. If you have different sets of rules for different people that work for you, your employees are wondering why, and it discredits you as a leader because they've got to know who you are every day. You've got to be consistent. They can't come in the morning and try to figure out what version of you they're going to work for. You have got to be a consistent leader. so that your team doesn't walk in the door and wonder what mood you're in today. That should never be part of the morning discussion ever, ever. You've got to be the same person constantly. Now, how do you get your recruiters to upgrade clients? This goes back to what's in it for me. Once they understand the importance of representing companies that your candidates want to work for, this is just a no-brainer, and that changes. You've got to teach every candidate to identify the top 5 companies in their industry and the niche. This helps your recruiters constantly identify the hot companies in your market. And it was interesting. I'm in the Chicagoland area, and we ask everybody we interview, where do you want to work and why? Where would you never work and why? And it changes, and you've got to represent the companies that people want to work for, and sometimes we'll have a company call us and they want us to represent them, but we know the issues why people are walking out the door. And if you've got a company where people there's no engagement, there's no retention, then you've got to give them information that can help them solve some of those issues, because we can help people solve those issues. If we let them know, what is being said about them. What is the quickest way that you could increase sales? Have your entire team focus on the number of first interviews that they arrange every month. And I call that a send out. A send out to me is getting a candidate in front of a decision maker. This is the most important number to monitor. When I had multiple offices, this was the only number I ever wanted to know, because nothing happens until you get the candidates you're representing in front of hiring managers. Nothing happens. You can interview 50 people. You can spend all this time with hiring managers, getting jobs, and you have all these jobs you're trying to fill. But unless people meet, nothing happens. I always say, if you don't date, you don't get married. If you don't book send outs, you don't get hires. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. Other tips I would give you, and again, if you increase the number of first interviews every month, you're going to increase the number of jobs you fill, because everybody that works for you has a job order to fill ratio. How many first interviews, how many send out to fills, how many first interviews do they book before someone's hired? So these are some other tips. Obtain interviewing times and target dates to fill all openings. Just ask for interviewing times and target dates. You've got to know interviewing times and target dates, because if they say ASAP, whenever you find somebody, now you don't know which openings to work and which not to work. And sometimes we have multiple jobs we're trying to fill. So I want to know a target date, and I want to know, exactly the specific date. And I want to get 3 interviewing times, because I've told the story before where we were working with a huge company, and they wanted to fill a job before the end of the year. So we had to really work. They had to consolidate interviews, because they called us right after Thanksgiving, and their normal hiring process is 5 weeks. Well, when we went to get the first interviewing times from them, they said January 7th. And I said, but you asked us to fill this before the end of the year. And the person goes, oh my God, I did. Let me get back to you. Well, when he went back to the people involved in the hiring process, he realized nobody was available till after the first of the year. They told him they had to fill the job before the end of the year. They couldn't, because nobody was available. Only interview candidates with skills, experience, and stability. Provide resources from the candidates that you can't place in a job. You're going to place a very small percentage of the people that you attract. But the problem is, your recruiting team can spend a whole lot of time taking incoming calls from people they're never going to place in a job. Provide them, do a courtesy interview, provide them with resources that'll help them find a job on their own, but you can't give free career counseling all day long. Most recruiters spend 90 minutes a day taking incoming calls from candidates they're never going to place in a job. Imagine what would happen if they spend 90 minutes a day booking more people on first interviews. Obtain performance objectives from your clients. And this was a major change we made a few years ago, and this has changed the whole ballgame for us. We will not accept a job unless we have 5 performance objectives, because what I realized is I would get a job from a client, and all of a sudden I've got this whole list of requirements, and maybe they gave me 10 things that have to be there. And I find a really qualified candidate that has 8 of them, but because they don't have the other 2, the client would screen them out. Well, what I started doing was saying, how are you going to evaluate this person in 6 months to a year? Give me 5 performance objectives. How will this candidate be evaluated in 6 months and a year? And when they gave me the performance objectives, I realized the tremendous disconnect between that long laundry list of skills they wanted and how they were going to evaluate my candidate. And what I realized was a lot of the skills that they asked for, and then I would do one more thing. I break down the job into percentages. What percentage of the time are they going to do what? because sometimes they'd ask me for a skill set that's hard to find, and the person wasn't even going to use it 5% of the time. Well, candidates that have that skill set don't want to lose it. They don't want to do it less than 5% of their time. So they might take the job and then realize they're not using that skill set. So they become disengaged and they quit. They become a costly turnover statistic. By getting performance objectives, I noticed something else. They were not asking me for certain things that my candidate would have to succeed. So they were asking me for things that they weren't even going to evaluate the person on, but they were not asking me for things that were going to set the people I placed in jobs for failure. And so we will not work on anything until we have 5 performance objectives. And what it's done is it's gotten rid of that laundry list. Now I can present candidates that have transferable skills. Now I can send people that have, because if somebody's doing the exact job that you have open, okay, think about this. You find a candidate that's doing everything that you want, the exact job that you need to fill, okay? The candidate's not going to take that. And if they take it for more money, they might take it for more money, they're still going to look, because candidates want to learn something new. They want to become more marketable. They want a job that's a stretch. They don't want to do the same job, even if it's more money, especially millennials and Gen Z. They want to know that they're learning new things. They want to know that they're going to develop personally and professionally. They want to know the value of their work. How does their job help the company attain their goals? These are questions you have to ask people now, because you will be asked this by candidates. And don't be surprised if you send somebody on an interview and they ask the interviewer, where can the job lead? Because they want to know where the job is going to lead. You've got to prepare your hiring managers for that question so that they're not turned off. That shows they're interviewing a high achiever. You've got to develop repeatable systems at work. What is your system? What is your system when you get a resume? What is your system on interviewing? What do you enter into your ATS or CRM? What information? You know, how do you sell against problem areas? You've got to have a system around everything. Systems have changed now in the last 2 years. So you got to do a lot of revamping of what you did before, because it's a different workforce, a different workplace. You've also got to run your business by numbers. You know, provide your sales team with written expectations. What can they expect from you? What do you need from them? And by the way, I also give expectations to candidates and hiring managers. This is what you can expect from us. This is what we need from you to only present candidates you're going to hire, or to only present jobs you're going to accept. People are confused. They don't know what to expect, because everybody out there is doing the job differently now. And so by giving written expectations, it's amazing how that clears up confusion. You've got to know your best business and have your recruiters aim 85% of their marketing efforts at your best business, and develop referral programs for clients and candidates. The people that you put in jobs, think about this for a moment. The people that you've put in jobs and all your current employees, they're either your army of recruiters or they're being recruited away. So they're either out there telling everybody what a great job you did for them, or they're being recruited away. Everybody that you've hired, everybody that you've put on a job, they're either your army of recruiters or they're being recruited. You know, and so I got to ask you, are 40% of your new hires the result of referrals? If you've been in this business longer than 18 months, 40% of your new clients and 40% of your new hires should be referrals. If that's not your reality, think about how much easier your job would be. Think of how much easier your job would be if 40% of your hires were referrals. This year we're running over 60%, but we really work at it. We really, really work at it. You know, and when I review referral programs, it's amazing. It's obvious why they're not working. So if you're not getting a ton of referrals right now, then you've got to sit back and you really got to think about that and revamp your internal referral program, revamp your external program. Because if you treat candidates right, the candidate experience is really important, even the candidates you don't hire or that you don't place in a job. If you interview someone and you know they have no skills, stability, experience, you know you can't find a job for them, but you have to give them resources. You've got to treat them right, because they will still send you referrals if you were nice to them. And guess what? In a year or two, you might be able to place or hire them. So the candidate experience is becoming more critical than ever, because it used to be a candidate might leave and not like that they didn't hear from you or they didn't hear back from you, and they might tell their friends. Now they can go online and tell thousands of people in minutes. And if people are submitting their resumes and they're submitting things to you online and they don't get anything back in return, they feel that their resume or CV ended up in a deep, dark hole somewhere, they're out there telling other people not to apply because they weren't treated right. So many of them feel like we don't care about them. How they feel about you and I is that all we care about is filling jobs. We don't care what's important to them. And we prove them right when we interview them for a specific job with a job in mind. And all we talk about is a specific job rather than slowing it down. And I never thought you'd hear the word slow down from me. But boy, I've had everybody in my organization slow down the last 2 years. We've got to slow it down and really determine what's most important to this candidate, because candidates are not wanting to do what they did before now, are they? So many of them want to change careers. They want to change industries because of everything that's going on. And so when you present a job up front and you interview them for a specific job and never find out what's important to them, you prove them right that all you care about is filling a job. You've got to suggest, let's have a conversation so I can determine what's most important to you. Once I know what's most important to you, then I'll know if we have a job that fits you or not. That person, whether you hire them, place them or not, they're going to feel great about you because they had a good candidate experience, and they're not going to get online and blast you. And the sad part is when you do a great job, people are not as apt to go out there and say you did a great job. But when they don't like what you did, they go on social media and blast you, or they go on Glassdoor and they blast your company. You know, again, you've got to make sure that everybody has a good experience with you. Another thing you've got to be very careful of is, you know, it's important for you to protect yourself against your clients hiring your recruiters, you know, because, you know, if you're doing a great job for a company, often they're trying to hire your recruiters to be an in-house recruiter on their team. And it's so funny because I talk to owners of staffing and recruiting firms all the time that say it's okay because now my recruiter will still use us and we have an in now with them. No, they hired your recruiter because they're not going to use you anymore. And so you should have verbiage in your agreement that if they do hire one of your employees, they owe you a placement fee. You know, but if you're treating your people right, they should not leave. You know, and if they do leave, again, don't blame them. You got to point the finger back at yourself. Every time we blame somebody else for anything, whether it's the economy, and those poor millennials, the millennials are blamed for everything. I happen to love millennials. I think that there's so much talent there, and you better start looking at the good things about millennials because they will be 70% of the workforce in a little over 2 years from now. They're already your hiring managers in many instances, you know, and so, and Gen Z is very different. You know, Gen Z makes up part of that majority of the workforce, but they don't even like to work remote. They like to work on site. They want that constant feedback. They want to have a mentor. They want to have a coach. I mean, it's amazing. They want that hand holding. You know, millennials want to be recognized, but they're driving the remote work and the flexible hours and that. Gen Z is a total different generation. You've got to know who's working for you and who you hire and how to lead them. Remember, we're not managing anymore, we're leading. Now, what impact does training have on your team? Because obviously we've been talking about that. Training has a tremendous impact on the level of success your team achieves. Because if there's one thing I know for sure, it's that things are going to continue to change. And the minute you upgrade your training, you've got to know that within 6 months to a year, it's going to be outdated. That's the reason that, like I said, I've been in a studio for a year and I've launched all new training, and it's all video because people don't want to do audio or written anymore, you know, and it's got to include the latest, greatest techniques in this ever-changing workforce. One of the best ways to recruit, another thing you could do, get your employees to do videos of themselves. Millennials love their phone. They love to pick up the phone and videotape themselves. I personally don't even like to do videos, and I've done we're at 800 videos now for all the new training I've done, which is crazy because I had to get comfortable with it. But what a great thing to have videos of your employees telling other people why you're a great place to work. People love to watch videos, period. Now, let me go into some training mistakes that you can improve. I'm going to go to the top 7. Number 1, training is left up to your production managers. If you've got somebody who's recruiting and you're having them try to train other people how to recruit, number 1, it takes them away from being able to fill jobs. And they're going to teach people their good habits as well as bad habits. And if you're not providing them with new training and they're training on what they've known for the last 2 years, they're outdated. Things have changed so much. Even some of the basics have changed in the last 2 years, which never happens. Number 2, training is condensed into 1 or 2 weeks of training. People say training from me when they come on calls like this is like drinking from a fire hose sometimes, because I try to give you so much in a call. So every one of you will leave this call with something you can go and use. Okay. But when you do training into 1 or 2 weeks, it's information overload. It's like drinking from a fire hose. And it's proven that people retain less than 5%. They just do. If you're a business owner and you're providing training, it's not best use of your time. And it can delay hiring due to a busy schedule. I used to not hire in spring and fall because I speak at a lot of conferences in spring and fall. So I would never hire new people in spring and fall because I wanted to be there, because I wanted to train my own people. And then I realized, how dumb is that? That I could come across a peak performer and I'm delaying a hire for 90 days because timing's not right, because I'm going to travel. I knew that was just a bad decision based on my own experience. On the job training lacks consistency. And again, you'll learn good as well as bad habits. New hires are told to watch top producers. If you've got a brand new recruiter that you just hire and you tell them to watch the current people on your team that are successful, they're going to fail. Okay. Because your tenured team know who to call and how to call. And so they could do 1/3 the work with twice the results. New people have to make 5 times the contacts of someone who's successful, because they don't know who to call. They don't know how to call, and they'll get very flustered and think that your tenured people are screening all their people out because they're new. It's not that. They don't know the job. Training is not consistent. Systems guarantee success. If you don't have systems, even again, I think in the chat line, I'm seeing all of you are admitting you don't like your referral program. I'm telling every one of you, 40% of your new hires should be referrals. And 40% of your new clients should be referrals. If it's not, it's your referral program. It's not your recruiters. You've got to go back and you've got to design an effective referral program. Or training is not self-paced. It's not videos and there's no accountability. If you give your people a chance of training or doing anything else, they're going to pick anything else. Unless they're millennials or Gen Z, then they want to develop, but they don't want to do it on their own time. They want to do it during working hours. They want it to be flexible. They want to do it when they want to do it. And only testing can hold if you want to know if your employees are retaining information, you've got to test them. If you were making any of these costly training mistakes, you can go back and you can change what you have to change, because these are the most expensive training mistakes make. Or we've launched new tutors. Now, today I'm talking about 2 of our new tutors, and they're direct hire recruiting tutors and direct hire client development tutors. And what I did is I put lessons online that are audios, live weekly training webinars with me, test to prove retention, biweekly coaching calls, a comprehensive library, and consistent training. I also have tutors for talent acquisition. I also have tutors that are going to be launched for contract staffing, in the very near future here. We developed a whole new learning management system that could house all these videos. I almost blew up my learning management system because I didn't have videos. And when we started loading these, it almost blew up. So I had to develop a whole new learning management system. But again, if you implement any of the suggestions that I've given you in this program, you're going to produce more. But one additional suggestion I want to make to all of you: just set up time to speak to one of my experts. We can be your solution, or we may not be your solution. But either way, setting up a phone call is going to be worth your time, because we're going to focus on 100% of what's important to you. If you do decide to invest in any of our tutors, which will be launched in October. In fact, we're just a couple days away from launching these 2. The first 10 people to invest in any of our tutors will get a 25% pre-launch discount. And so if anybody, but the phone number is there, the QR code is there to set up, a telephone call. Do I think it's worth all of you to set up a phone call and just let us know what your problems are, what you're facing? Again, we might be your solution, we may not. We might be just able to give you more information that you can do on your own. And I've given you a ton of information during this call, that you can implement. But again, I just see so much has changed, and anything I can do to help you, I would love to do that. So now I want to open the line for questions. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to unmute all of you, which means please be aware of your background noise. Okay. Because again, we're going to hear everybody now. Let's see here. Okay, now why is it not letting me unmute all of you? Hold on a second here. Let's see here. Let's see, mute participants. Nope. Let's see here. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to allow all of you to unmute yourself. So any of you can unmute yourself and ask me a question. All you have to do is go to where you see the microphone and you can unmute yourself rather than me unmuting everybody in case there's a lot of background noise. So any of you can unmute yourself. So does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask me? All you have to do is unmute yourself. Or you can ask me questions in chat. Oh, I see a bunch in chat. Let me go to the chat line here. Hold on a second. Okay. We don't even have 5% of our new hires as referrals. That would change our game. Wait, that would change our game. And of course, we'd fill more jobs. Is that included in your training? Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, we tell you how to announce it. We walk you through what to do. It's interesting. I just came back from a CEO conference, and that's what I did at a CEO conference at a big corporate event. I taught them how to improve their internal employee referral programs because most companies do not have a good, internal referral program. And most staffing and recruiting firms don't have an internal referral program. They just don't. Or they have one and nobody knows about it. No one knows about it, and that doesn't help you either. I mean, you've got to know what to do. You've got to know how to get what you want out of it. So again, I've given you, somebody just told me they're having trouble unmuting. I just gave the permission again. I'm hoping you're able to unmute. I'm going to start going through and start unmuting some of you myself. Hold on here. Yeah, it said you can unmute yourself. So all you have to do is hit that microphone, please. And you can unmute yourself. Let's see. It's saying that all of you can unmute yourself. So I'm not sure why some of you are having trouble. So what I would say to all of you is, if you have questions and you're not able to unmute yourself right now, you've got the phone number right there in front of you. I'm also going to give you my personal email address. I might regret doing this, but I don't think I will. If you don't want to click on the QR code and you don't want to call our office and you'd rather email me, please feel free to do that. My personal email address is bbruno, so BBruno, bbruno at goodasgoldtraining.com. So my personal email address is bbruno at goodasgoldtraining.com. And what I will tell all of you is, if you decide to invest, it's the first people that set up the call. It's the first people that call in. So if you want to call my office at that 663-9609 to be one of the first 10 to call in, or if you want to email me to just make sure that if you do invest, you're one of the top 10, feel free to do that. My email again is bbruno at goodasgoldtraining.com. Okay, I've got more on the chat line. Let me go back down to chat. Barb, what do I do if I have someone working for me that could be good, has been here forever, and is just not doing it anymore? That's always a really tough thing. But again, you're only as strong as the weakest person that works for you. And so when you think about that, and what is that person costing you? What is that person costing you? You spend so much of your time and energy trying to save people. And so often, I'm no different. I've done the same thing. Half the time I find myself caring more about somebody than they care about themselves, or that they care about our business, and too often people have quit and stayed. Our job is not easy. Our job is not meant for everybody. It's just not. This is not an easy job. And by the way, if there's anybody on this line right now and you're not a manager or owner, and you want your manager or owner to hear this program, you're going to get a recording of this program because you registered. But you might want to share this with your owner or manager. If you feel you need training, please share this with your owner or manager, or you can have them email me and I'll give them information. Barb, we find the candidates absolutely will not talk on the phone no matter what we do. So I don't agree with you that if they see the benefit, they will call you back. What I have to say to you is that it's your voicemail that you're leaving, it's the emails you're sending, it's the text you're sending. You sound like everybody else. Are you using your brand? Everybody wants to work with a success. So if you're reaching out to a candidate, I don't want to know what your company does. I don't want to know what you need or want. I want to know why I should call you back. So if you call me and you leave a message for me saying, I saw your LinkedIn profile, I would love to talk to you. We've got several jobs. You sound like everybody else. But if you call me and say, I was so inspired to pick up the phone after reading your LinkedIn profile because I've helped 4 other people with experience very similar to yours, advancing their career in the last 60 days. I would love to talk to you about what you want to do next. Most people do not intend to retire from their current job. The calls you were making and the emails you were sending and the voicemails you were leaving, I'm telling you, they will talk to you. They will talk to you. We have an email that we send that in a voicemail that we leave that has over a 60% return call and return email, where less than 5% of emails are being responded to right now. 82% aren't even being opened. And do you know what to do to get an email open? There's things you can do to get your email open. So I'm telling you, there's so much that has changed. You're wrong. People will talk to you. If you got that call from me and I said, I've helped 4 other people with experience very similar to yours, advance in their career in the last 60 days, I would love to talk to you at your convenience about what you see yourself doing next. Why would you not talk to me? It would make no sense for you not to talk to me. Even if you're happy in your job, you're going to want to talk to me because I told you I've helped other people just like you advance in their career. So you've got to let them know. So I'm telling you, you're wrong, that people will talk to you if they see it'll benefit them. The other thing I want to say to you, if you're dependent on job boards and website postings, they are not working anymore. There's a reason why the job boards are a lot of them are in trouble right now. And they're opening, they have ATS systems and artificial intelligence. They're doing all kinds of other things to stay in business. LinkedIn has proven, and so have other organizations, that less than 15% of candidates of the workforce will respond to a job board ad or a website posting. So if you're out there and you're only doing job board ads, you're posting and praying, it no longer works. It no longer works. It actually attracts 15% of the workforce. The other 85% are passive candidates. They're out there working, doing a job, or they're not even working. They've just given up on the job market. How do you get these passive candidates? How do you find them? Where are they? Where do you go to get them? The other 85%. Everybody's fighting for the 15%. Last year, companies spent $2.5 billion on job board ads that didn't give them the candidates they needed to hire. And this competition, I don't care what's going on in the economy, the competition for top talent is not going away. Not going away. The numbers are just not there. The numbers are just not there. Companies will close because they can't find talent. And engagement and retention are at all-time lows right now. The amount of counteroffers being accepted are at all-time highs. But there's ways you can prevent them from happening. You just have to change the way that you're approaching candidates. We can't approach them the way we did before. So I certainly hope that I'm getting a bunch of thank yous now on the chat line. You're very welcome. Again, if you have a question for me or you want to reserve one of those 10 spots in advance, my personal email again is bbruno@goodasgoldtraining.com. You can click on the QR code to set up a call, or you can call our office at the number that's on the screen. You've got 3 ways of contacting us. If you don't want to contact us and you want to do things on your own, just listen to the recording, implement something you learned today. I want every one of you better off for having come to this call. I want every one of you going back. There's no power in what I do. Training, there's no power in my training. The power lies within you. What changes do you make when you get off my call? What changes do you make? So you have the power in your hands to make a difference and to get the best out of your team. Now you're going to lead them. You're no longer going to manage. You're all leaders. And hopefully you implement some of these ideas that will make you more money. So we're almost at the top of the hour. I never like to go over because I respect your time and I respect you. So thanks for joining me. Again, please reach out. Every one of you, I would encourage to set up a call with one of my experts, because if nothing else, they're going to give you some clarity. Let them know what you're facing and they're going to give you clarity. Like I said, we may be your solution, we may not, but you're never going to regret setting up that phone call. I guarantee that, because all we're going to do is focus on what's most important to you. So thanks everybody for joining me. I appreciate all of you. And I look forward to, hearing hopefully from most of you. And I look forward to you and your teams being more successful as a result of this call. So thank you, everybody. Bye.